And once you take on that victim mentality, that's when you lose your power. You give it away. If whatever happened to you, or is still happening, has caused you to feel like a victim, I'm here to tell you, you can choose empowerment. You can choose hope. Greetings, friends and family I know and love, and friends I haven't met yet. This is Allison with Faith Squared Music. Just like our last video, we're out camping and it's a little bit buggy, so I hope that doesn't become a problem. But anyway, also there's background noise. We're camped next to the water. It's so loud that we had to move away from our campsite a little bit, but that's the noise that you hear. Anyway, this is my second vlog, and what I hope turns out to be a long series of videos aimed at helping folks better understand how to use neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, for healing and happiness. Neuroplasticity can be used to address and even heal things that many of us are struggling with. I know, because over 8 years ago, I became a different person due to the effects of several significant physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual challenges, illnesses. You might even call what happened to me a breakdown, but I'm better now. Actually, I think I'm better than I was before all that happened, so now I'm on a mission. You can learn more about all of that and me, resources and tools I'm sharing, especially our original brain rewiring music, at faith-squared.com. My focus is Christ-centered brain rewiring, but you don't have to be a Christian or especially religious to benefit from what I'll be sharing and the science behind it. I also want to make the point that I'm not ever going to condone a path of pursuing brain rewiring to the exclusion of all other potential solutions. My own healing path with neuroplasticity happened in tandem with some brilliant medical care from a naturopath, wise therapists, smart eating and some quality supplements, etc. And as I stated in my disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or a doctor. I can't give medical advice, but I am a credible messenger, and that counts for a lot. I'm going to pick up where I left off in my previous video, talking about our dog Zeke, and comparing his overreactions to non-existent threats, such as in harmless delivery people or hearing a doorbell on the television, to what dysregulated limbic systems can do to us. If you'll recall, coming up with this analogy was my Zeke epiphany. Sorry, Max dog up in heaven. We'll come up with a Max epiphany someday in the future. Anyway, I want to emphasize that Zeke was not a bad dog. He was not a broken dog. He was really an awesome and delightful dog. And he's not the only canine to be so vigilant about protecting his pack, right? That's like a canine thing. But I do believe that his fierceness about it was likely rooted in fear. I mean, I know it was. We know a little bit about his life before he came to us, and it caused him to have some pretty severe separation anxiety. We had to work very hard and very purposefully to help him get over that, and we were pretty successful. Plus, we got Max to be his brother from another mother, and that helped. But the fear was still there. He just switched it over to being afraid of all potential threats to our safety, personified by anybody coming to the door. So let's talk about fear for a minute. What do you think the opposite of fear might be? Is it courage? Or is it confidence? I just referenced 2 musicals there. I'm going to do that a lot. See if you can catch what they were. We'll talk about it later at the end. Is the opposite of fear peace? Is it love? Is it just knowing that you're going to be okay? That you are okay? That you're safe? For me, that's what I was looking for. Can you actually choose to feel safe over feeling afraid and make it happen? Give that some thought. Maybe that never occurred to you before. Here are some more thoughts on the subject of fear. Do you understand that animals and people do not make the best choices when they are scared? Have you ever done something stupid? I hate to use the S word, but I'm going to. Something stupid because you were really nervous, frightened, anxious, scared. Of course, we all have. I have. When your body's getting pumped full of adrenaline and cortisol, and your heart's pounding fast, and you're having a hard time breathing, your ability to think things through and make reasoned choices is compromised. And sadly, the kinds of choices that we make in those states can reinforce the negative mindsets and false beliefs that we build around our fears. It's not just fear that does this to us. It can also be pain, anger, shame, bitterness, blame, etc. A classic example of this is this little rabbit hole I'm going to go down to, and I hope I don't go down too far because it's easy to spend a lot of time there. And I don't want this to seem political. It's just historical, and it has to do with what we're talking about. A great example is how the American government put its Japanese citizens into internment camp during World War II. This is present in my mind because I taught school inside juvenile detention for 4 years, and twice I took my students through this whole book called Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet by Jamie Ford. I can't recommend it highly enough. And that story about what really happened during World War II, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, because it was in everyone's faces, right? That was central to the plot of the book. It's a fictional book, but it was based on real events, right? So a lot of the kids, this is the first time they'd heard of this, and they really identified with people being locked up, right? So what happened in those internment camps really was not the same as what happened in the concentration camps that the Nazis created, right? But there are some pretty uncomfortable parallels there, and my students are super sensitive. We're super sensitive to injustice and to, racism or bias or not having given people an opportunity for a chance to defend themselves or whatever like that. And I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty horrific what happened. Totally unfair, totally not right, etc., etc., etc. However, I would also make the point of you weren't alive then. You don't know what it was like. It's really easy to judge from this perspective. Part of that was, in those days, in the 40s, our lives were not so integrated as they are now. We didn't see all these people of different races, backgrounds, from different countries, etc. Well, there was no television then, but, in movies, on the radio, in books, in our neighborhoods, we live a lot more integrated life. We're not so likely to judge people that way. Most of us are knowing, we know better now. And the fact of the matter is, what happened to us at Pearl Harbor was pretty dang terrifying and pretty awful. A lot of people either knew somebody who died or almost died, or they knew somebody who had a friend or family member who died, and if not then later on in the war in the Pacific, right? And we learned how Japanese soldiers had been trained to commit some pretty awful atrocities against POWs, etc., right? All of that stuff, when you already have a narrow view of what your world looks like and your people look like, contributed to this paranoid atmosphere. Plus, it was understood that there were some Japanese people in Hawaii that aided the enemy in planning and carrying out this horrific attack on December 7th, right? Get excited here, I gotta slow down. Anyway, people do stupid things when they're scared. Bottom line, again, I hate to use that S word, but we weren't there, we don't understand what it was like. We can learn from this, right? That's the point. People often do things they shouldn't when they're scared. Having compassion and understanding about that doesn't mean it's okay. It just means that we can and should learn from it. And one of the things we should learn is to give ourselves grace, compassion, and forgiveness if we've made mistakes because we were scared or in pain or whatever it was. Now back to Zeke. If we wanted to make an effort, I know we could have trained Zeke to not be afraid of people coming to the door. For instance, we could have put up a big sign, had little flyers. When people came to the door, especially delivery people, they could have read about how we're going to teach our dog to not be afraid and so threatening to strangers. So maybe my husband could have gone up with Zeke in the living room and looked out the window. I could have greeted the delivery guy, handshake, maybe get to the point of giving him a hug, play ball, laugh, point at Zeke, hi, have him hand me a treat. Look, Zeke, what I got from the delivery person, right? By now, come in the house, give it to the dog. He's not going to say no to that treat. He's going to notice that it smells like the delivery person. He's going to have this oh, well, this didn't end badly, did it? Thought, yeah, right? You do that enough times over a period of a month or so, he's going to change the way he feels about delivery people. We could get to the point of Sid being at the top of the stairs and open the door, and Sid holds the dog, and I say hi to the delivery guy or gal, shake hands, Have a good time. Take the treat. Look what this person brought for you, Zeke. Blah, blah, blah. Do that for a while. It's going to be even more deeply ingrained that delivery people are all right, to the point that someday we're going to open the door and the dog's going to say, "Hi, I'm so glad you're here," right? Well, in doggy language. So it would have been possible to do that if we would have tried. We didn't make the effort. We probably should have. Dogs can be trained to do amazing things, and so can all animals. My husband loves to watch the zoo shows on National Geographic, and it's astounding to watch hippos, tigers, elephants, gorillas cooperate with their keepers to do stuff they normally would never do, especially when treats and rewards are involved, right? I've even seen videos of trained fish and bees. So maybe think of that training as a kind of brain rewiring. It is. Understanding that should give you great hope for yourself. You don't need like a trainer or a keeper though, right? But you can be shown how to think and respond in new ways. Through guidance and education, you can be taught how it works, how to do it. Certainly, you'll need help and coaching and encouragement on path, but really and truly, you can do this yourself. I did. Thousands upon thousands of people have done it and been successful. Contemplate for a moment how empowering that bit of information is. It made all the difference to me. Just hearing other people's testimonies who had been much sicker than me and see them talk about being well, that changed everything for me. That moment, boom, there's hope. All of this is important because sometimes when a person comes to understand that their limbic system injury or malfunction or dysregulation is not their fault, as I've stated before, there's a second implied message of, well, somebody else needs to fix it then. Think about that. From the time we're small, we are taught to take responsibility for our own messes. You spilled it, you clean it up. You broke it, you fix it. You hurt her feelings, you go apologize. If we're expected to fix the things that we break, we expect that of others too. Even if that means we have expectations of some collective entity or institution or something like that to come to our rescue. It just does not apply here. For one thing, it's generally not one entity, person, place, or thing, or event responsible for a person getting stuck in limbic system dysregulation. It's a combination of things. And even though I can pin part of my trauma on some things that happened to me at the hands of several well-meaning medical professionals, that doesn't mean it's their job to make it all better. And let me make the point that my anger about that had the effect of keeping me stuck longer than I otherwise might have been. Thinking that they, whoever they are, should fix things, or even just acknowledging to yourself that they can't, and then ruminating on that unhappy state of things can really contribute to you identifying as a victim. And once you take on that victim mentality, that's when you lose your power. You give it away. If whatever happened to you, or is still happening, has caused you to feel like a victim, I'm here to tell you, you can choose empowerment. You can choose hope. By the way, I Choose Hope is a Faith Squared music song that I have written lyrics for, but the music hasn't been written yet. We can all look forward to that. Dealing with your challenges from the perspective of being a victim gives rise to a certain way of thinking, speaking, feeling, and acting. And if you've fallen into that trap, those habits are going to reinforce your perceived helplessness. They're going to make your situation worse, not better. Here are some examples of things you might say and feel that could make things worse. Oh, I'm just so stressed out today. Oh, I am just too anxious to ever get a good night's sleep. Oh man, if that happens, I'm really going to freak out. Everyone in my family struggles with anxiety. None of us know how to deal with this stuff very well. Any of this sound familiar? You can change the way you think, feel, speak, and act with intention and repetition. Oh, repetition. You can change the way you think, feel, speak, and act with intention and with repetition. Something else that can cause us to stay stuck in a victim mentality is the need for sympathy and validation. Kind of ties into this. I know, because this was my story for a long time. What happened to me was so awful and so alarming and life-changing and scary. I wanted people to know. I wanted them to understand. I wasn't just being flaky or suffering from too much stress from spreading myself too thin. Something really serious was wrong with me. I wanted to grab people by the shoulders and shake them and look them in the face and make them see the depth and breadth of what I was coping with. I wanted to shout, "You have no idea what I'm going through," right? I wanted people to hug me and cry for me and say, "Oh, you poor thing," and everything that goes with that. But thinking like that didn't help. Acting like that didn't help. I didn't do that very often, but a couple times I probably did. Conversations like that didn't help. Me just describing my suffering in detail to others only reinforced it. I get that once in a while you need to be honest with people close to you. But dwelling on it and letting it become part of your identity, that's a different story. It makes you feel more powerless. You may have been powerless before as limbic system issues spiraled downward, especially because you didn't know what was happening and you didn't know how to stop it. But you don't have to be powerless now. You don't have to let your fears call the shots in what you think, say, feel, or do. You can be your own hero. You can choose hope and empowerment over victimhood. You can choose to create courage in your own heart and mind and in your life. In case you haven't noticed my earrings, I'm a serious Wizard of Oz fan. That's my first reference, it won't be the last. You can choose to create confidence in your own heart and mind and in your life. Thank you, Julie Andrews and The Sound of Music, one of the most beloved musicals of all time. That song's got a fabulous message, by the way. With intentional training of your brain, using principles of faith and neuroplasticity to rewire, you can choose to replace fear with peace, with love, and with feelings of absolute safety and security. There are ways to do it, and we'll be talking about it. Okay, and my cameraman says, "Go, you're on." Here's another song that's on this subject, not exactly, but pretty dang close. It's about expectations. Lyrics are written, music not yet. It'll come eventually. I will look forward to it. I chose this song because once you have adopted you expect to continue to be a victim. And your expectations shape your reality. So, here's what I have to say about that. Self-prophecy fulfillment, that was me. Stuck on instant replay, anticipating pain, anticipating loss, inadvertently shaping my days. Presumptions and assumptions, bringing to pass realities that I designed. Disappointments here, difficulties over there, no box to click for I decline. So much of what I thought was my reality was just my limited view revealing to me echoes of my past, repeating constantly. Expectations, what have you done? Hurt and disillusioned so many times, the pattern became routine. This is gonna hurt, here we go again. Gloomily surveyed the scene. Twisted satisfaction when proven right, even when being right burned. Failing to see all my calamities, more often than not, I'd earned. So much of what I thought was my reality was really just life reflecting back to me. Hurdles my brain thought were all we could see. Expectations, what have you done? So glad I figured out my vital role in this sorry state of affairs. It's amazing how much I can control just by being aware. Self-prophecy fulfillment, yep, that's me. Funny, it works both ways. Anticipating hope, anticipating joy, learning how to shape my days. Intentional intentions, bringing to pass realities that I design. Blessings over here, miracles over there, since I figured out the bottom line. The way I now experience reality is really just my life reflecting back at me. Tender mercies that my brain can finally see. Expectations, look what you've done. So glad I figured out my vital role in this happy state of affairs. It's amazing how much I can control just by being aware. Today I'm moving forward with my goals in mind, my destination bright ahead. Confident that God will light my path, trusting in the words He said. Faith makes all the difference, especially when I think and speak in harmony with grateful expectations, laying firm foundations for miracles meant just for me. The way I now experience reality is really just my life reflecting back at me. Tender mercies that my brain can finally see. Expectations, look what you've done. Expectations, look what we've done. I hope that sunk in. It felt good to read it. Almost got emotional there. In my last video, video number 1, my only previous video, I didn't talk a great deal about scriptures. I was a little bit vague about some messages of the scriptures, and I had some come up on the screen, but I want to get a little more specific. I have these 14 principles of brain rewiring that I have built the website around, and there is no specific one that talks about victimhood. There's one that says we must choose taking responsibility over victimhood. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's close. The thing of it is that I found within the scriptures there's not a lot about avoiding feeling like a victim. There is stuff about empowerment though, and there is stuff about responsibility. Some of those scriptures though focus on sin, and that's not my message today. It is true that sometimes sinful choices or failing to do the right thing, failing to repent, forgive, ask for forgiveness, those things can get in the way of your healing. But that's not what we're talking about today. So I chose a few that I think do relate. So there was this guy, a paralytic, at the pool of Bethesda. If you've watched The Chosen, this scene is very familiar to you. It's one of my favorites. John 5:5-9. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" Man, I love the scene in The Chosen where he looks him in the eye and says, "Do you want to be healed?" I cannot describe what I felt in my heart the first time I watched that scene. Okay. Sorry. "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. When I am trying to get up, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said unto him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. If that isn't empowerment, I don't know what is. Like, you don't have to be a victim of what's wrong with you. Certainly the power of God was a part of this story, but so is empowerment. 2 Corinthians 9:6. Remember this, again, New International Version. "Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously." I'm here to tell you that this applies to your behavior toward yourself, the way you think and feel about yourself. If you place limits on yourself, you will be limited. If you think, speak, act, and feel like a victim, you will be a victim. If you think, speak, feel, and act empowered, you will eventually be empowered. Okay, my final one. Luke 22:41-43. This is from the King James Version. This is Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. "And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him." If anyone had a right to feel like a victim at that moment, Jesus did. If there's anyone who had a right to call foul, this is not fair, all the stuff that has happened to me and is going to happen to me, he had the right. He made the most difficult choice anyone ever made in that moment. Despite the fact that he was feeling like, this is too hard, do I really have to do this? I mean, we know he was trembling, right? But he chose, he had a choice. He did God's will. Now, what he went through and why he went through it doesn't really parallel the kinds of challenges that we're talking about, that you and I deal with limbic system dysfunction, dysregulation, and yet there are some truths here that we can gain strength and wisdom from. 1, angels came to help him. You don't have to do this alone. Maybe those angels will be actual beings from the other side of the veil, but more often than not, you'll just have an angel in terms of a person in your life, a stranger or a family member or a friend, who is willing to be an instrument in the Lord's hands. To maybe just hold your hand, right? Be your cheerleader, be your shoulder, whatever it is. Point the way. Those angels make the difference, and you're entitled to them. The second thing is that Jesus was willing to do whatever it took to go through what he did because he knew it was important, and he knew it would be worth it in the end. Brain rewiring is a lot like that. It's not easy. It's hard. There's a lot of roadblocks and detours. It's not a straight shot, and there's a song about that too. It's dang hard, but everything worthwhile in this life is challenging, right? It's challenging. That's where you build up your muscles, spiritual, mental, whatever they are. Brain rewiring works. It's not easy, but dang, if you can keep your eyes on that goal of I'm going to be okay, I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be peaceful, calm, I'm going to feel loved, I'm going to be strong, it's all going to be worth it. Boom. That's going to make all the difference. And you can't be that way if you have a victim mentality. So I hope some of that made its way into your heart today and will make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening and for watching. Don't forget the website. All the information is down below the video. Sending lots of love.